average for the time of year, but otherwise it's still a little on the chilly side. On into Wednesday's forecast though, we've got these southwesterly winds spreading that milder air in off the Atlantic, but it's going to be quite an unsettled day. The best of the weather probably in the morning across eastern areas with some sunshine. In the west, we start to see thundery downpours work in. Some of those are going to be quite lively with the winds strengthening. But look at the temperatures. We're looking at highs of 15 or 16 degrees Celsius. But after a dry day, I don't know, it feels disappointing with the return to rain, Fiona.
Chris, thanks very much. Thank you. And from the 6 team, it's goodbye. The news continues here on BBC One. Now it's time to join our colleagues across the nations and regions for the news where you are. Bye-bye.
Hello, good evening. I'm Roger Johnson. Welcome to Monday's North West Tonight. Thank you for joining us. Our top story. A court is told that the man accused of killing 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Korbel is trying to pull the wool over jurors' eyes. Thomas Cashman denies the charges. His defence accused prosecutors of Cinderella syndrome, forcing the evidence into a shoe that doesn't fit. We'll have the latest. Also tonight, hotspot policing and swift justice. New measures to tackle antisocial behaviour across the region. Mandy's mission. She's preparing for a first marathon, age 67, in memory of our own Diane Oxberry.
And it's been a pleasant start to the week, but how's it looking tomorrow? Join me at the end of the programme. I'll give you all the details.
Prosecutors and defence lawyers have been delivering their closing statements in the trial of the man who is accused of murdering Olivia Pratt-Korbel. The 9-year-old was shot in the hallway of her home in August last year. Thomas Cashman denies all the charges. Let's go live to Manchester Crown Court. Katie Barnfield has been following developments today.
Well, yes, Roger, we are into the final stages of this trial now, and the judge, Mrs Justice Yip, started off today by giving some directions to the jury. She said the central question they have to answer is whether Thomas Cashman was the gunman the night that Olivia was shot and killed. That's, of course, something that he denies. We heard from David McLaughlin, KC, on behalf of the prosecution, who claimed the series of events the jury had heard about so far provide layer upon layer of evidence that the gunman was Thomas Cashman. He claimed Thomas Cashman's explanations were him trying to pull the wool over the jury's eyes and said he must think you were all born yesterday. He said the straightforward conclusion is that Thomas Cashman is not the unluckiest man in the world. We say he is the gunman who shot Olivia and he is not prepared to own it. He also pointed the jury back to a key witness who we can't name for legal reasons, who alleges that Thomas Cashman fled to her house after the shooting and then talked about it. He quoted her saying, "I can't believe he's making the family go through what they've gone through. It was a child. She can never go home again." Thomas Cashman, however, has claimed this witness has been giving false evidence against him because she's a woman scorned and because her partner owed him a significant drug debt. His defence team today cautioned the jury against what they called Cinderella syndrome, trying to make the evidence fit him. John Cooper, KC, said, for example, the prosecution's evidence of gunshot residue on clothing alleged to have been worn by Cashman was fundamentally weak and that no one had identified him at the scene. He also talked about the attention generated by the case, saying people are screaming for a guilty verdict and that with every notorious trial, which this is, there is pressure to convict, but that this is not a popularity contest. Well, the trial will continue tomorrow when the defence will finish their summing up and before the jury retire to consider their verdict.
Katie, thank you very much. Katie Barnfield there reporting live from Manchester Crown Court. Now, there will be new powers to crack down on antisocial behaviour in Lancashire and Merseyside. They've been chosen to pilot new government measures, which you might have seen on the national TV. They were announced today. There'll be extra police patrols in problem areas, and those responsible for antisocial behaviour will be made to repair damage within 48 hours. Eunice Muller sent this from Lancashire.
Sarah wants to remain anonymous. A victim of antisocial behaviour, she describes moving into an estate in Burnley.
It is only recently that I've gotten myself together. I was a gibbering wreck. When I first moved in here, I'd go past some of these kids. I was nervous as hell, not knowing what would happen next.
A gang targeted her home, her pets, and then a nearby building.
The teenagers have broke in, smashed windows, Kitchen facilities have been broke up, bathrooms have been smashed up, fires have been set.
Lancashire has been chosen as a hotspot area for a new kind of policing, with extra patrols not only from police but also enforcement from local authorities as part of a crackdown against antisocial behaviour. There'll be new powers to deal with drug use and to allow testing on arrest.
These patrols that are funded by government will be on top of everything else that we're doing, and those officers will be dedicated to walking the beat in that local area, engaging with residents, engaging with businesses, identifying repeat offenders and dealing with them.
Merseyside is piloting the immediate justice scheme. Antisocial behaviour offenders will be made to wear high-vis vests or jumpsuits and work under supervision to repair the damage they inflict on victims and communities within 48 hours of their offence. Victims of antisocial behaviour will be given a say in offenders' punishments. Nitrous oxide, also known as laughing gas, is to be banned, and there'll be extra funding for youth centres. Preston North End Community and Education Trust already work with young people who are involved in antisocial behaviour.
You know, nobody's saying that the police shouldn't arrest people, that they shouldn't get them told off for things that they're doing, because ultimately if we don't have rules, we don't get any structure. I just think it's having that honest and open conversation, and organisations being aware that some of these young people are there through no fault of their own because they've had a really tough time.
The government says this is about strong communities built on values, but it's also to stop antisocial behaviour escalating into serious criminality. Eunice Muller, BBC North West Tonight.
Now, patients who need repeat prescriptions are being asked to ensure that they are stocked up ahead of Easter, which is coming up, and of course all the bank holidays that we've got around the coronation, as well as the usual ones during May. You know, every month the non-urgent 111 service takes up to 10,000 calls asking for repeat prescriptions, which of course many of those calls aren't necessary if people are able to plan ahead. Well, I've been talking to Dr. Paula Cowan. She is the NHS's North West Head of Primary Care.
I think our main concern is that patients have their repeat prescriptions, and looking at data from the last 12 to 18 months, looking at bank holiday weekends and Easter, we see that quite a large proportion of demand within the out-of-hours service, 111, and the emergency department has been for patients requesting repeat prescriptions. And so the message that we want to get across is that for patients and their carers, that if a patient is due a prescription, due their repeat prescription in the days coming up to and around the bank holiday weekend, that they get that request in as soon as possible so that they won't run short of their medications over the bank holiday weekend. And that will give the pharmacy plenty of time to ensure that their prescriptions are ready for them. Yeah, so be organised. I guess, though, in the 21st century, it's not necessary always for patients to call their GP for a repeat prescription, is it? What are the ways that they can do it to make it as easy for everybody as possible? Yes, you're absolutely right. We use a lot of digital technologies and platforms in order to arrange repeat prescriptions. And, you know, many practices now will have websites where patients can order their repeat prescriptions, and it will go to their nominated pharmacy. So that's one way. And also using the NHS app, which patients can use for a number of variety of ways and reasons, but also they can order the repeat prescription on that with a box that they can tick for their appropriate pharmacy. So there's lots of ways that we can do this. And if a patient isn't able to do it themselves, sometimes they'll get their carer or their family member to do that for them. And it streamlines things. It makes it easier. There's less needing to drop off as we used to do it in years gone by, drop off a prescription into the practice, come back within 3 days. Doing it electronically means that it's at the pharmacy within 72 hours. Dr. Paula Cowan, thanks so much for talking to us. Not at all. Thank you. And proof that Paula gets instant results, a colleague of mine has just messaged me to say that they have just ordered some new inhalers via the NHS app, which they were on the verge of running out of just before Easter. Now, Cumbria's local councils are being scrapped in a week's time under a local government reorganisation. Instead of a county council and 6 district authorities, there will now be just 2 councils, Cumberland and Westmoreland and Furness. The aim is to save money and make it easier to access services. Bob Cooper's got this report.
Westmoreland, a bit of Yorkshire and Cumberland in its entirety have been swallowed up by a new county calling itself Cumbria.
hard to believe Cumbria was once a new creation, patched together from old counties and not popular with everyone at the time.
My regrets are very sincere and very strong.
But the new county council went on to see folk through some historic events, from foot and mouth to major floods.
Mr Johnson.
Here. Cumbria County Council's been meeting in council chambers like this one in County Hall in Kendal for nearly 50 years now, but today is the last ever one before, on the 1st of April, 2 new councils take over with some old familiar names, Cumberland and Westmoreland and Furness.
Sad occasion, really, but the geography of the county, I think, is the reason why it's being disbanded. Barrow and Carlisle are the big centres of population, and they don't mix really.
And it's not just about slicing the county up. Cumbria's 6 district councils currently provide services like rubbish collection. They'll be binned along with the county council. Going from 7 to just 2 authorities could cut waste and save tens of millions of pounds. So do Cumbrians think it's worth it?
I think it's a good thing that it's gone to unitary authorities, and so there's only 2 elected bodies. It must be cheaper, it must be more economical.
The way they have the government have split the county is ridiculous.
It could make more isolated population centres may become overlooked.
Future generations will judge if it was the right move. For now, the old signs are coming down and the new ones are going up. Bob Cooper, BBC North West Tonight in Kendal.
We'll follow that one with interest. Now, just for the sport with Richard, we'll have something of a musical interlude because music legends such as Joy Division, Elbow, even the Beatles all began their careers performing on small stages. But one grassroots venue, on average, is going out of business every week. And the Music Venue Trust says that this year could be the worst year for them going to the wall for a decade. So the charity is using crowdfunding to try to save some of them. I should warn you, there are some flashing lights, as you might expect, in this report from our political editor, Annabelle Tiffin.
Manchester band Affleck's Palace rehearsing for the BBC Radio 6 Music Festival. The 4-day event showcases emerging talent as well as better-known acts. A chance for artists to get their work heard by a wider audience.
Almost all of the bands performing at the 6 Music Festival this weekend will have honed their craft in venues like this, the Band on the Wall in Manchester. But not all of them are as successful as this place. In fact, one goes out of business every week.
Venues like this are the lifeblood for emerging artists. Without them, you can't cut your teeth on the live music experience.
And one of those under threat is the Snug in Atherton, a coffee shop by day and a music venue at night.
We do mainly grassroots music.
Owner Rachel admits it is not an easy time.
We're trying to get new bands in through the door and get them on the stage. But then we're faced with the cost of energy prices going up, the cost of beer going up, just trying to sell tickets for a gig when people are they're still unsure what they're going to do.
A recent survey by the Music Venue Trust found that in 2022 there was a 16.1% decline in events at grassroots venues. Audience figures were also down, with the average venue only 40% full on any event. And the average profit margin is just 0.2%, meaning many are subsidising live music performances. The Snug is one venue supported by the Trust, which has launched the Own Our Venues campaign. By the end of this month, it hopes to have raised £3.5 million to buy the freeholds of 9 UK grassroots venues, and the Snug will be one of them.
Zero VAT on tickets and a reduction in business rates for these places. You know, we've got a series of asks just to kind of put these places into a more secure position and allow them to do this amazing work they do.
At their studio in Leigh, we get a preview of the lottery winner's latest single, a collaboration with Boy George.
We've been going for like over 10 years, more like 15 really, and still not famous, but then all of a sudden it seems to be like happening.
Over the years, they performed in small venues across the northwest, including the Snug, to get them where they are now.
It's so important for culture and it's so important for music, and without those places we wouldn't be doing this, and that is the bottom line, isn't it?
The government told the BBC it was doing all it could to support grassroots venues, and further help was being provided through the Supporting Grassroots Live Music Fund via Arts Council England.
Those are the sticky floors that made, where we were made, that we found our feet. That was a nice analogy, I'll do that one. Those are the sticky floors where we found our feet. That's clever, that, isn't it? I'm so clever. Put that in.
Get up and start again.
Annabelle Tiffin, BBC Northwest Tonight.
Now, for a quarter of a century, she told us that rain was on the way, but she always made us smile. It is 4 years since our dear friend Diane Oxberry died, and this woman behind me, Mandy Winkworth, is about to run her first marathon at the age of 67. She's a former colleague of mine and Diane's and of all of us here at Northwest Tonight, but she's doing it in Diane's memory and to help the ovarian cancer charity, of course, which bears Diane's name. Davinia Ramos has been to try to catch up with Mandy.
Running a marathon's no easy feat, especially if you haven't done it before. But Mandy will be thinking of a very special person as she prepares to take part in the biggest race of her life.
I worked with Diane for many, many years. I was there on her first day with BBC Northwest, and we've worked together ever since. I was a studio director, and we had a lot of fun times together. Mainly, I remember at Tatton Park for the flower show. Diane was a wonderful addition to our coverage there. She loved it, she absolutely loved it, and people there loved her.
Mandy had never run before until a few years ago. She took part in the Great Manchester Run back in 2019 in memory of Diane and got the running bug after that. But training for a marathon's been a completely new challenge.
It's hard. I get a lot of pleasure and comfort from running with other people. I could not do this on my own. I've had a few niggles along the way since I've been training. I started training just after Christmas and gradually building up the miles.
Tell us why you wanted to raise money for the Diane Oxberry Trust.
Diane tragically died in 2019, and between diagnosis and her death it was a matter of weeks, and the Trust really wants to prevent that from happening to other families. They want people to be aware of the symptoms, which are often symptoms of other things and much more benign things. So things like bloating, feeling bloated, loss of appetite, wanting to go to the toilet more often, things like that.
Mandy has to fit in 20 miles before the big day, which is now less than 4 weeks away. Davinia Ramos, BBC Northwest Tonight, Wilmslow.
Best of luck to Mandy. You can find out more about the Diane Oxberry Trust by visiting its website. The address is dianeoxberrytrust.org. Now, Mandy's 67. She goes running.
Yes,
I see you've got rid of your crutches at least after your running injury.
I'm going to try and enunciate it properly. I've left my crutch at home, Roger. Thank you. Oh, he's so cheeky. Yes, no crutch. And a beautiful day today, hasn't it been? We had a glorious sunrise this morning in Oldham. Thank you to Norm for sending that in. And then this afternoon, plenty of us saw skies like this in Lancashire. Thank you, Ali, as well. And that's all thanks to high pressure. So, yeah, there's been a bit of a nip in the air. We have had a northerly breeze, but it's been really quite pleasant. And, of course, I'm back, so that means it's all going to change. The fronts will start to come in from the west. So we're going to get southerly air, but it is going to be quite damp, certainly through tomorrow. And then for the rest of the week, we're looking at further spells of rain as well. But let's focus on the positive, the here and now. Dry and fine through this evening. Chilly at first, so we will get temperatures dropping down to about 3 or 4 degrees, but then you'll notice cloud starts to build in, and that's the beginning of that front. So by the end of the night, temperatures more like around 6 or 7 degrees, and those outbreaks of rain starting to feed through. So waking up in the Isle of Man tomorrow morning, it's going to be pretty miserable, I'm afraid. A fair amount of rain. It's going to be cloudy and breezy as well, and that is how it's going to be through all parts in the morning and into the early parts of the afternoon. Heavy at times, that rain. The wind's picking up. Behind it, we will get some clearance, perhaps some bright spells, particularly for Merseyside. But along the coast, it's going to be quite windy, gusts of around about 28 to 35 miles per hour. but milder, in fact above average for the time of year. Staying unsettled though, Wednesday, still windy, still further outbreaks of rain, and actually showers into the afternoon could be quite heavy and thundery, and it doesn't look too great for the rest of the week, does it? But it is going to be milder. Wednesday, we start off actually fine. Best of sunshine at first. We see that rain coming through, heavy for a time. Behind that, we get showers. They're likely to be heavy and thundery, with temperatures coming in at around about 15 degrees into the afternoon. Now watch me wobble over. Here we go.
Take your time. You kindly arranged for me to go to Blackpool Zoo to be a trainee zookeeper. I went this morning, had a very nice time. This is me waking the aardvarks up for their breakfast.
Look at who's got the biggest nose?
Well, look at that tongue. That's an anteater. I was feeding him his mealworms.
Oh, look at him.
And then this is me with Maggie the emu. Maggie's partner, Ollie, is the oldest emu in the world, I reckon. He turned 40 recently.
And does she love being scratched?
She loves being scratched. That's me scratching her. You can see more of how I got on Thursday evening's programme. Don't miss it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sending me.
I'm back on the hunt for the UK's next top food and drink entrepreneur.
I'm so ready for this.
I'm going on fighting.